Hi, welcome to One Eye on the Page. I am Scott. It is another vlog week. It is for the week of the 23rd through the 29th of October. Now, I'll say first of all that I did something that I say I don't like doing near the beginning of the month. I made a TBR for October books, Halloween books, basically kind of with a Halloween or horror theme. As I should have known was going to happen, is I did not finish all the books on my TBR, which is why I shouldn't do TBRs. But I will discuss that a little bit later. But let's go ahead and talk about the books that I did finish first. Uh, the first book I finished this week was not the one I'm about to show you. I'm going to put that back. It is actually the collected short stories of Maupassant, Volume 9. There are 13 volumes, so I should finish all the volumes before the end of the year. But Volume 9 is kind of pretty much a continuation of what I have been expecting from him. The first book mainly dealt with the Franco-Prussian War, and I thought that was going to be everything that he went on about. But then it started to move away from that. And although there are sometimes Prussians mentioned in the stories, it's not as big a part of the books as it was. Perhaps it should be. I don't know. But I will go over some of the stories. I'm going to mispronounce this. It's Tony, but it's about a man who basically is bedridden, and his wife is disgusted by him, doesn't love him, whatever. Basically, it is a Guy de Maupassant marriage. Ain't nobody having fun or liking each other. But one of his friends makes a joke with her about, since he's not really doing anything, she should put eggs in there with him so that he can hatch eggs, much like the hens do. And she decides to do that. And that's the story of this bedridden man hatching eggs and the wife who hates him. Next story is Madame Hussein's Rosier. It's about an award given for virtue, and the woman who does it, the aforementioned Madame, was going to give it to a girl, but she decides to give it to a boy because he displays the most virtue in this village. And what happens is he gets money as an award, and then he uses the money to get drunk off his ass, and he becomes a drunkard. Happy endings. Adopted Son is about a childless couple who want to adopt a son from a farmer and his wife. The farmer and his wife say, no, that's disgusting. We will not let that happen. Uh, a neighbor allows it to happen, and later on, the farmer's son is upset because the neighbor's son, who was adopted, has a much wealthier life than he is. The first snowfall is about a woman who marries a man who brings her to his home. It is very cold there. It's almost always cold, particularly in the fall and winter, and she is not used to it. And she wants him to buy a furnace, but this is what he was raised in. He's used to it, and he refuses to, and she deliberately gets cold to try to force him to get a furnace. Marriage. Sundays of the Bourgeois. Sundays of the Bourgeois is about a mid-level bureaucrat who just living his life. He's a bachelor, has health issues, so he decides that he needs to start getting up some exercise, goes on walks, tries to become acquainted with the female sex. That doesn't go great. Has a dinner party where he has a debate with another schmuck there, and that's pretty much the story. It's it's a novella. It's a very long story without necessarily a lot happening, but it's kind of like people sitting around and talking, and it's okay. Our Letters is about a man who's staying with a friend and his wife, and he can't sleep basically, and he finds some letters in the secret compartment of the drawer that he has to spend several hours opening, and he reads the letters, and it's between the wife and a man. I am not aware if the letters are from before her marriage or not. The last couple letters are after because she has asked for her letters back. The Effeminates. It is about girl-like men in French. I guess men who are effeminate. It's a bad story. It doesn't really do much. It's probably my least favorite story in here. And there's one, Old Amably, and I mispronounce everything. Apologies. Another longer story about a father whose son gets married, the son gets sick, and the son passes away. The father has to live with his daughter-in-law now, and she needs somebody to help work on the farm. And she had had a child previously with another man, and so she wants to hire that man to work on the farm, and how the old man reacts. It's basically Guy de Maupassant, just life is misery, man. Marriage is misery, man. And, you know, uh, women, am I right? That's pretty much it. I'm going to give it a 3 star. There weren't any standout stories. Most of the stories were decent, mid level, but they're also at this point kind of repetitious. It You start the story, you know what you're getting. Oh, so, probably going to be a bad marriage, or people taking advantage of other people. It's not going to be a happy ending. Somebody's going to be telling a story about it in the past, and somebody's likely to die. 3 stars. And then I did finish Bunny by Mona Awad. This one took me a while to finish, which is another reason why I did not necessarily finish the Halloween books that I was going to read, because this was one of them, and this one kind of took me a while, man. Took me a while. Bunny is about a girl, Samantha. She is at a college in a writing program. She has a friend, Ava. There are 4 girls that they call the Bunnies, who are almost like Stepford co-eds. Probably for like the first third of the novel, it's building up to one thing, and then it just totally does several 180s, I would guess. And I don't want to say much about the novel because I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but I will say that it's told in first person. And when something is told in first person, you have the chance of an unreliable narrator. I am a bit hesitant now with unreliable narrators, because it's almost to the point where I think people start to use it as a crutch. It tends to be overused. I will say that the writing in here is very good. There's very good writing in here. But, well, I'm going to read a section of the novel. Now, it appears like 5/6 of the way through, but it's not going to spoil anything for you, but it's going to tell you a little bit about the novel. This is Kira, a student reacting to somebody else's story in a workshop. Whenever I read one of Victoria's vignettes, I always feel so dumb because I can hardly understand them at all. And then I blame myself. I think, Kira, this must be just too brilliant for you to grasp. Surely you must have missed something. Even though there's always been the small voice inside of me that says, what the fuck is this, please? This makes no sense. This is coy and this is willfully obscure, and no one but Victoria will ever get this. I would in fact need to live inside Victoria's spoiled, fragmented, lazy, pretentious little mind to get it. And who apart from us, apart from me, is going to be willing to do that? To work all night with the Victoria decoder? Who would even care to? And then I feel like screaming, just say it! Tell me what happened! Tell me what the fuck this means and what you did with him exactly. And that's what I feel about the novel. Now, I feel that's obviously self-referential, but it's also it's very good writing, but it's also a little bit too cutesy for me. I would give the writing in this a 5. I would think. I think the writing was excellent. I just think that it was too cutesy, too pretentious. I just didn't have a reason to care. I think I understood what Samantha, the main character, was going through. I think, or at least, I think I'm in the right village. I may have to knock on a few doors to get the right house, but I'm around the area. And I don't feel bad about not being able to say, oh, I fully understand this because I have read comments by other people after I finish this who are basically kind of like in the same area I am. I just, yeah, it's it's too cute, not willing to give an answer, and it's not giving me enough to go, oh, I'm okay with figuring this all out by myself. So it didn't strike the right balance for me. So it's a 3 star. I'm glad I finished it. I'm glad to be done with it. The next book I finished was The Collected Short Stories of Guy de Maupassant, Volume 10. A lot like Volume 9, really. I will mention some stories. The Christening, basically a little racist. The Devil is about a woman who watches over a woman on her deathbed so that her son, the woman who's dying, her son can do his farming because the doctor has insisted that somebody has to be there for the woman. And basically, the farmer hires the woman. She has daily charges, and he basically says, "How about I pay you this amount, but you have to stay until she passes away." And then it's basically a race to see who makes out better monetarily wise. And somebody doesn't want to lose money and does something about it. The will, a woman who is basically abused and mistreated by her husband and 2 of her sons, passes away, leaves a will to her third son, who is not her husband's son. His father and the husband have a duel. That pig of a Marun is a man who is a little bit too tempted by the beauty of a woman, and he gets brought up on charges. 2 of his companions, I wouldn't call them friends, try to talk his family, try to talk her family out of pressing charges, and one of them becomes attracted to the same woman, but he's handsome. The other man was not, but he doesn't end up with her. Oh, the son, uh, kind of similar. In a way, a man stops at an inn in his travels, is very attentive to a maid there. I think if it was written in modern times, you would say what he did was a little bit more than being attentive. But he leaves and then he stops by like 30 years later. She has passed away, and given birth to a son who is an idiot. He's about 30, and the man thinks it's his son. St. Anthony, about a man who abuses oppression and in anger at him, kills him, and then basically hides his body and then pretends that he's searching for him, and then somebody else gets accused of killing the man and is shot. The end. Perrault is the name of a dog. Somebody really wants a dog, but then there's apparently a dog tax. So they can't afford the dog tax. So what they do is they throw the dog into a clay pit, which is where many people throw dogs. They'll throw a dog in there, and then later another dog with more energy will go in there and kill the first dog, and that's the story. A Normandy joke. People pull a trick on a man on his wedding night, and then there's another story about a drunk priest. There are other stories in there, but those were the ones that I thought were worth mentioning for one reason or another. Well, I think this one is probably a little bit worse than Volume 9. It still is a 3-star. It's uh, yeah, I mentioned I don't know what volume is, like 6 or 7. There was The Terror, which was an excellent horror story, which I felt he should go in that direction. And there are elements of it in these stories that you could see, oh, this could be a horror story, but generally it just ends in, you know, I'm going to finish the series. I have 3 more books left. They're fairly short, so I'll definitely finish it by the end of the year. But I think there are 13 volumes. You could probably, for my liking, fit 2 volumes worth of stories, and those would be excellent books, and the other 11 just. He also has novels, but I do not plan to read them unless I don't see a reason why I read them. The last book that I have finished this week is 2 Part Sugar, 1 Part Murder by Valierie Burns. It is a cozy mystery. A woman is given in her aunt's will a house, a bakery. She has to stay there for at least a year and run the business. But almost immediately, there are people trying to get her to sell everything. She also gets a 250-pound dog that she basically immediately falls in love with. The dog, Baby, is the best character in the book. Oh, also, she starts out, she's rather a superficial person, but that's just for us to see her grow. But she starts to grow almost immediately, so I don't know why she had to be superficial if you're gonna almost immediately course correct. The book was fine, but it just ended quickly. It was like 260, 270 pages. And the mystery is solved, sort of, except we don't know who killed one person who was killed in the book. We don't know who killed, if anybody did, one person before the start of the book. I know there's a second book. It almost seems like this was one long book, in that for whatever reason, the publisher decided to just split it in two, but just split it in two. Didn't like go, okay, well, we'll have to solve some things here and then move to the second book. It's like, nope, right in two. And then you're in the middle or you're at the end of book one. You're like, okay, but this didn't, what about that? That, hold on, what? No. So probably 80% of the way through this, I don't think I would have given it a 4-star, but I probably would have given it 3.5. But because of this, it's a 3-star. It's a little bit of a generous 3-star. It's probably more like 2.8 stars, but I'll give it a 3 star. So those are the books that I finished this week. I have finished 21 books in October so far. There are 2 more days in October. Will I finish another book? Possibly one more, but I don't think so. I need to talk about the books that I didn't finish because I finished 3 books on my 6 Halloween TBR books, including Bunny, but I have not finished Candles Burning by Tabitha King and Michael McDowell. I I'm like 60 pages in. I'm actually listening to it on audiobook now. I'm going to finish it. It's gonna be a little bit rough. Honestly, the story's fine. I'm interested in the story. The writing's good so far. I don't know if this is Tabitha King's writing first or if she just finished it up or if she wrote any of it because Michael McDowell died in 1999 before he finished the book. So I don't know who wrote what or however, but there's too much family shit. Okay, I get it. This family is stuck up and talk shit about people, but it just keeps going and going and going and going. Move on, get me to the story. So I got that. I have Wildwood Road by Christopher Golden. I will be completely honest on it. I'm on page 5. So yeah, I'm gonna continue to read it, but definitely not finishing it in October. I do believe I will finish it, but got a ways to go. I am a little bit further in Peter Straub's A Dark Matter. This I'm on page 9, so I have a bit to go on that one. It's not striking me as a Peter Straub book, but I don't have a lot of experience with his books later on in his career. And this was 2010. He passed away, I believe, last year. So I don't know. I am also reading. This is not a Halloween book, but I told somebody about it in the comments, and I decided to read it again. It is Hobgoblin by John Coyne. I'm actually 30 pages into this. I have read this book before multiple times. So I will finish it. It's just I'm probably gonna go little by little. Probably another one that I will finish in November, but definitely not gonna finish in October. A book that I have started is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a book club book. My family has a book club. This is one selected for this month. We're going to be doing it at the end of November, so I just have to make sure I have it read by then. I've read 12 pages. It seems fine so far, but I have looked through it because there was something that was annoying me. I don't like the articles that are interspersed through here. Maybe they're necessary. I don't feel, at least in the first 12 pages, that it was necessary at all, but maybe it will become necessary, but I'm not liking it. Other than that, I like the book so far, 12 pages in. So, and I also have to read Leave It to Psmith, another book that I've already read, but this is for our I'll Be Dash a Wodehouse podcast. So I have to have this one read before Thanksgiving because I'm going to see Robin on Thanksgiving and we're going to record it not on Thanksgiving but around Thanksgiving. I'm going to be reading probably like 5 books in a genre. It is something that I did with romance books like 3 or 4 months back because I hadn't read a lot of romance then. This is another genre I don't have a lot of experience with. I'm not trying to keep it secret, but I'm not going to say it just in case it doesn't turn out well for me, which it quite possibly will. So I try not to talk too much about that because I don't want to go like, yeah, I'm going to be reading Canadian ska fantasy, and then you're like, hey man, where's the Canadian ska fantasy video? It's like, oh, I had to give up on that. I'm gonna try it, and if you see the video, you'll know I finished. And if not, then I'll just get some other genre. It's like, oh yeah, that's the one I meant. It just took me a while to read it. I will also start reading in a few days A Christmas Carol because we read A Christmas Carol every year, starting on the 1st of November and going to Christmas Eve. So uh, November is quite a month for rereads because that's at least 3 books that I have already read before. And that is it for this week. Please like and subscribe, leave a comment, and I will talk to you next time.